I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, joined today to my left, the senior ballistician, the ballistic engineer with the most, Jaden Quinlan. Jaden, thanks for co-hosting me and joining our guests, special guests all the way from Ruger. We got Matt Wilson, product manager, and we got Nate, who is a manufacturing engineer.
You got it.
Degreed engineer. So, guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for letting us be here.
Absolutely. And candidly, the reason you're here isn't just to come see Hornady and it's all of the, the prairie greatness that we have out here, but it's the Zombies in the Heartland 3-gun match. So, are you guys competing this year?
We're competing tomorrow during the sponsor day, so the abridged version of the match.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
No, it's a great way to do it.
Seeing you at the top, towards the top.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I can offer.
Have you competed?
This will be my first 3-gun competition, so
okay.
I'm as green as it gets when it comes to that.
All I got to say is have fun, run fast. Don't hurt yourself.
Don't hurt me.
Yeah.
Anyone?
We've got our shooting sports manager. He tore or ruptured a similar muscle and tendon that I did in my calf called the plantaris last year. Just was like, all right, shooter ready? Beep. And then he took off running and his calf said, nope, you're an old man. Get down. So be safe. Have fun out there. And I'm not an experienced 3-gunner, but in what I have competed in, Jaden, you could probably second this. The physical act of running, like legitimately running and gunning, it's one thing to just say running and gunning, but then the physical act of doing it, you'll just have the smile on your face. Yeah. Like, where else in the world do I get to do this?
Yeah, pretty cool.
And it's pretty cool. And I'm guessing you guys will be using the newest launch from Ruger, the RXM pistol.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. And glad to have it. We'll be featuring it the whole weekend on our side stage, and hope anyone who's here is going to come and enjoy it with us.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of new product from Ruger, you guys were here in town. We wanted to take the opportunity to come around our podcast table and discuss something that the end user, that our listener, doesn't get to see. What they get to see is Hornady releases a new cartridge. And then the internet typer snipers come in with, my 30-06, this is the coolest thing ever. We never, ever need a new cartridge ever again. This is the new, this cartridge walks on water. You get both ends of the spectrum and everywhere in the middle about the new cartridges. And that's what the people see. They see Hornady launches a new cartridge. What they don't get to see is the development that it takes to really get that cartridge designed, get it SAAMI approved, and get it standardized and make it an official cartridge. The other side to that, they go to the store. They go to the Sportsman's Warehouse. They go wherever. They see the Ruger rifle on the shelf or the Ruger pistol. Okay, well, that's chambered in this new cartridge. Great. What that user doesn't get to see is the hours and the tens of thousands of rounds. And when I say hours, I mean individual hours. So by man hours, you guys have thousands of hours dedicated to, okay, there's a new cartridge in the market. Let's flush out, does it belong in our lineup? How does it fit? Where does it fit? Okay, it fits here. Now, can we bring this firearm to market? Because what we want as an industry, we want that end user to go into Murdoch's, to go into Sportsman's, to go wherever, grab a factory rifle and Hornady factory ammo, and then go have the time of their life having fun hitting what they're aiming at. And it has to work, and it has to fit, has to feed, has to function. And if there's a problem in that cycle that the end user didn't create, they did everything right. They bought quality factory rifle, quality factory ammo, and I have a problem. What's going on? They want to avoid that. We want to avoid all that. So there's a lot goes into it. And so we're going to take this time to dive in. We've got senior ballistic engineer who can talk to the design of those new cartridges and what parameters, what they're thinking in the lab, in the Hornady Ballistic Development Group, what goes into that, and are we working with these gun manufacturers early on? And then we can turn it over to, now that you guys have the cartridge, it's standard, it's approved, you can get function and test ammo and proof ammo and all that stuff from Hornady, how do you get it into your lineup? So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Jaden. I want to hear from you. You can talk broad level if you want, but what's it all about? How does it start for a new cartridge? For example, just in the last couple of years, 22 arc, 6 arc, 6.5, 307 PRC, 25 Creedmoor just came out here. You've got cartridges like this. How's it all start? And then how do you just slowly chink that thing forward to an official approved cartridge?
Yeah, that's a good question. Really, it starts with a lack of capability within the sea of cartridges that already exist. I mean, you did a good job of describing that. We come out with a new one and we always get beat up on, really, we need a new one. But what exists between each cartridge is performance trade-offs, right?
Okay.
You go up a caliber, you go down a caliber, and recoil changes, and ballistics change, and wind changes, and velocity. There's all these little kind of blending nuances, and what we've really focused on the last, I would say, probably 20 years is designing a cartridge that does something that none of the other ones do. Mm-hmm. They might do it a little bit, but they don't do it really, really well.
With factory options.
Exactly.
I think that's a key is the reloader can do a lot of things with a little.
And the Wildcatter can do even more.
Mm-hmm.
They're essentially limitless. They can do whatever they want. But there's caveats with those worlds too. You have lack of standardization. There's a lot of unknowns. And you can get away with it when it's your one rifle and you're going to build a cartridge for that rifle. But when you're talking production robustness, where you produce a product and you don't know where it's going to go or how it's going to get used, you have to factor in the extreme limits of possibility. And so that goes into it too. But to answer your original question, it starts with there's something could be done better or something is not being done at all. And typically that revolves around, the second half of the shooting experience, the external or terminal ballistics part of it. That's usually where things are lacking. That's where we observe the performance, right? You don't really look at whether the intricacies of a firearm operating, say a semi-auto system. You don't really care about that. What you care about is that it functions or not. It's kind of a binary observation,
right?
So that second half, how does the bullet travel? What does it do once it gets there? Those are the things where there's holes in performance that we try to fill. So that pushes you into the bullet first. So we typically look at what bullet will do this job that isn't being done by anything else out there, or not to the level that we think it could be done. Once you've identified the bullet, then you can figure out what velocities that bullet needs to move at to be able to do that job within the envelope that you're trying to use it. That starts to paint the picture of the cartridge case and propellant combination. And typically the propellant will be looked at first because there's characteristics about the propellant that the cartridge case doesn't really get a vote in. Temperature sensitivity, the type of propellant, all of that kind of stuff. Really the cartridge case, it's just the glue that holds it all together. It's the seal at the back of the barrel that keeps those gases expanding, to push that bullet down bore. So once you've got past the propellant stage and you wrap the cartridge case around it, then you assemble all the components and you start testing, and then you're kind of fine tuning. You've done your course adjustments in your bullet design and selection, propellant selection, cartridge case design. And then where we start to get Ruger involved in is the chamber design that goes with it. That's one of our huge successes, is the design of the chamber and the cartridge concurrently and making those two work kind of symbiotically.
Okay.
And once we get past that point, obviously we do a ton of testing here to make sure it does everything it needs to, but then it's going to go to the firearms manufacturer. And if it's a cartridge that is fairly similar to pre-existing stuff, meaning let's say a 6.5 Creedmoor is going to fit into a standard short action, bolt action platform. That cartridge isn't different enough, say, from a 308 or a 243 or something where you guys have to completely start from the ground up design wise. We have done cartridges that are like that. And typically when that's involved, we bring the firearms folks in early and say, hey, if we do this, can you do that, to kind of see if it's even feasible.
Right. Well, that's a good 30,000 foot view of how we get started. And you brought up a couple good points there, one of which is really paying attention to that chamber geometry. I think back to years ago when, going back 20 years, the involvement with Ruger, got 204 Ruger. That one comes to mind. That one, Dave, I know, put that 3-bore and his kind of secret sauce there in the freeboard dimensions, the RCMs, the 375 Ruger. I mean, the 204 Ruger, I don't use it a ton, but when I use it, there's a smile on my face.
Well, and that's one of those, it fits a role. What are you doing with it? It's prairie dogs up to coyotes probably for most people, or just fun steel with no recoil, but that does fill a hole that just existed in the world before 204 Ruger.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I think it really shows and highlights just the Hornady Ruger partnership. I mean, we go back to, I know you guys have all seen it, there's a photo of Bill Ruger Sr. and Joyce Hornady sharing hunting camp together in Cody, Wyoming in the mid-1950s. So going back now 7 decades, we have a Ruger Hornady partnership. And I know you guys have seen in our conference room the Ruger wall, all serial number 53 for whatever reason. So there's just this long-standing relationship. When you look at some of the cartridge development, some of the huge successes you guys have been a part of, you guys have been instrumental in the success of, obviously, the 204 Ruger, but cartridges that don't bear your name, like the 6.5 Creedmoor. I feel like that, we've talked about it on this podcast 100 times, but man, that RPR and the Ruger American, when you guys started chambering those in 6.5 Creedmoor, the rest is history.
It's a cartridge whose time came, because we know it was kind of a slow burn getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But we all figured out what it was and wasn't capable of, and when you put it in the right application, man, it's a great option.
Yeah, it really is. And it keeps the lights on around here, to say the least. So tossing over to you, Matt, real quick. Jaden mentioned, we're looking for holes in the market that factory ammo and factory rifles or factory ammo doesn't fill right now. That's how we attack. When you guys are looking at new firearm introductions, are you looking for similar stuff?
For big platform type new guns, absolutely. It's what can we do different than what we've already been doing or haven't been doing to fill a new need. New cartridges is a little bit different because there is such overlap, and if your flavor's 308 6.5, that's cool. An American rifle is going to be a good choice in either a Hawkeye, precision rifle.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at that new cartridge world, it's not only what will the application be, how are people going to expect to use it? It's the overall size of the cartridge, the amount of bolt thrust that cartridge is going to give. So first considerations are just like overall envelope to work with. How big does the gun have to be? And is this particular platform going to be strong enough, capable enough? Mm-hmm. Is it semi-auto? Is it bolt? Is it brake? Whatever, as far as actions. But it kind of starts with that big 30,000 foot view of what is this cartridge?
Well, I see you guys are not necessarily quick to move like you're jumping all around, but you guys do address trends. And I noticed, you mentioned your Ruger American line. Well, there are several submodels within that. And with the suppressor craze going on, I'm seeing shorter barrels and everything's threaded. So you're identifying, hey, this isn't available right now. People want the shorter barrels. They want the threaded barrels. We're just going to make a wholesale change and do it.
Absolutely. And you're never going to find the barrel length that everyone likes. I prefer shorter barrels generally.
Yeah.
There's still people who want 24 and 26 inch tubes because it gives you different options. We do lean on you guys a lot for the guidance, and it comes out of the SAAMI as far as twist rates and the chamber geometries. Those often come last, but barrel length and what's the most effective barrel length, where we get all the external ballistics, we got all the speed you can that you need to kind of do what a cartridge promises. Mm-hmm. You guys have always been very good at kind of giving that guidance. A 20-inch 6.5 PRC is perfectly appropriate for a lot of shooters, especially when you're putting on a silencer.
Yep.
And shorter's fine, and longer's not going to hurt anyone's feelings, but it's always good to know what those process parameters are. It's not just you're making a cartridge case with a bullet on the end. It's a system, and it needs to work with our system and deliver something to a customer.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
The Hornady CX Copper Alloy Expanding Bullet. CX bullets feature the advanced heat shield tip that resists aerodynamic heating and provides a consistently high BC. Hard-hitting and deep penetrating, CX bullets are constructed of rugged monolithic copper alloy that retains 95% or more of their original weight for devastating terminal performance. Available in factory-loaded ammunition as well as component bullets for reloaders. CX bullets from Hornady.
So, Jaden, right up until the point where we start getting other manufacturers involved, do you have an idea take 22 ARC, for example, or 25 Creedmoor, or pick one of these newly released cartridges. How long is it generally taking? Now, I know some of them, like the 6 ARC, happen right friggin' now. That one happened real fast. Conversation with the DOD to finished product was really, really quick.
Right.
That's kind of an exception. When you look at other cartridges, about how long of a timeline are we talking internally? And you do have an idea of how many rounds we're firing from various configurations, because we build guns internally, pressure barrels, velocity barrels, accuracy barrels. Talk to us about that part of the design.
Yeah, I would say it can go anywhere from 25 Creedmoor, you have pre-existing known performance and conditions on either side of it, the 6 and the 6.5, right? And the 25 happens to fit right in between them. So that one was fairly rapid. You also had a lot of existing, essentially performance that existed in the Wildcat world. The 25 Creedmoor had been used as a cartridge in the Wildcat world for quite a while. So that one was rather fast. Some of them can take some time. The propellant game is really like the long pole in the tent, because that really is the controlling metric of the performance. The bullet design, you kind of build that in, right? That's like an on-paper style thing. You do terminal performance testing if that bullet is designed to do that. But when it comes to the propellant, there's a wide array of options, and each of them does different things, to different levels. Right. And so the time it takes with the propellant is really a balancing act. It has to function. It has to be operable within the temperature ranges of the cartridge, which in many cases we have no idea of. So it has to operate at the extremes. It has to be able to work in a wide range of varying dimensions of the chamber. Every chamber has tolerances tied to it that It can be on the minimum and maximum sides. It's got to work within that. Same thing with the bore and groove dimensions of the barrel, the different barrel lengths that you talked about. So the propellants piece of it is a lot longer. I'm trying to think of some of the really long cartridge developments, but I would say maybe months to a year before it's kind of to a point like where we could hand it off to you guys. And sometimes we'll hand something off to you guys and we're still kind of messing with it. But just to get your timeline started, it's a 90% complete solution. We're just fine tuning maybe between option 1 or 2. So yeah, I
think the 7 PRC was quite a bit longer than that, only because market conditions, and we just launched the 6.5 and the 30, and
that's why it's hard to get a direct answer to that, because you look at 300 PRC, that's probably one of the longest ones. That thing sat as a test cartridge for essentially a decade before it was entertained as a standardized cartridge.
Yeah, so it can take quite a while, and while that whole thing's going on, we're shooting a lot. We'll get several different guns, pressure, velocity barrels, etc. And I think an important note here is we are the cartridge guys. We're the ammo guys. And although we know quite a bit about building a rifle, we're not rifle manufacturers. And there's a huge difference there. There's a huge difference. So we do need to kick it over to the rifle guys. And one of the things that we do that I'm not sure any other manufacturer does, and I'm sure they're going to in the future, because it's no secret about how we do this, but what we like to do is order in Reamer kits. Once we get this thing introduced to SAAMI, here's the dimensions, we will go ahead and order a huge amount of Reamers, roughers and finishers, and a set of gauges, and we'll order those from JGS, Manson, and Alpha Munitions. We'll get those in, we'll put them in a box with some test ammo, cases, set of reloading dies, a little bit of reloading data, and then we will send those at no charge to our partners in the industry that we think this product's really going to fit in their lineup. And that, to me, goes a long way for just getting these gun companies kick-started, if you will. So before I turn it over to Matt and Nate here to talk more about the gun side, I'd like to hear your opinion, because I'm going to ask them the same question, on the importance of getting these cartridges SAAMI approved.
I think it's very important. I mean, the SAAMI organization, I would describe it as essentially like a body of experts that peer review for the sake of compatibility, safety, all those things that we just assume are going to happen. Well, those things don't just happen unless you make them happen, right? And SAAMI does a really good job of that. And I think that goes to support, your guys' rifles. You can buy a Ruger American, you can buy a Ruger Precision, like the whole spectrum of different options there, and you get good performance out of all of them. And I can buy a rifle in California, I can buy one, just the whole spectrum. That standardization process it really benefits the end user.
Right on. Yeah. I think it's vitally important. Now, this is all voluntary conformity. We don't have to do that. It's a voluntary thing, but I think it's vital for us as ammunition guys to do that. I'd like to hear, Nate, Matt, your guys' thoughts. One on, would you guys even entertain starting building rifles on something that wasn't SAAMI approved? And then once we hand over those builder kits to you, what's the process look like?
Well, so it's rare that Ruger's ever chambered anything that wasn't SAAMI, and I'm struggling to even come up with an example at the moment, but 280 Ackley maybe at one time. I think we were building that before it was SAAMI. I could be totally wrong. It's just the first I can think of. But it's predictability for us internally. We know when we buy a box of 6.5 Creedmoor, it doesn't matter where it came from. It's going to chamber, it's going to fire, and it's going to be safe when it happens. And the same is true for the end user. So when I'm out hunting somewhere else in the world and go to Joe's gun shop, I'm going to find it and it's going to work. And it's huge. And I don't know how we would function as an industry without that.
It would be a customer service nightmare.
It would.
Absolutely.
And I brought all this up not to discount any of these really cool Wildcats that are out there, because there are some that are incredibly popular. There are some Wildcats out there that, you look at the Sherman line of cartridges, there is a pretty good following of people building rifles, and things are becoming more and more standardized. But for the guy to go to the shop and get ammo and get a gun that's going to work together without those standard SAAMI dimensions and tolerances and pressures and velocities, it's hard to do that at scale.
Sure. And we all love and appreciate Wildcat weirdos.
Oh, absolutely.
And it exists in the gunsmithing side to go along with it. And I love every bit of it. But most of us don't have the time, patience, ability, or know-how to succeed that way.
Yep.
So SAAMI goes a long way. It gives us all a common reference point. We know exactly what we're going to get.
All right. So let's...
I think it's worth mentioning that, even with SAAMI specs, it's a good, level playing field. But, we like to hold ourselves at Ruger just a little bit higher of a standard, right? So if SAAMI spec says this chamber needs to be ±5, we'll hold it to ±3 where appropriate, you know what I mean? So we'll bring the tolerances in so that we can maintain quality where it otherwise would have been more
That's
opened
a good
up.
point.
And I like what you mentioned about when you guys get the casing to where you want it, you will send the reamers and all that for us to test, because that maintains some level of continuity between cartridge manufacturer and either rifle or handgun, whatever manufacturer.
Yeah, and we've had issues with that. In the
Going
past,
in the past.
that's really what caused that kit thing to happen. Was we introduce a cartridge and you say this is what it is and these are the dimensions, and a guy that's going to punch a barrel goes and orders a reamer, and he punches the barrel, and then he has interference, the bullet's sticking in the throat or something like that, and he calls us up like, this isn't working. Well, did you verify the chamber reamer? Well, no, I ordered it. It said it was right. There's that lack of accountability that occurs. And so that first push out being that it's the kits are built with equipment we know is right, that gets you guys a troubleshooting level ahead. You don't have to waste time and chase your tail.
Yeah. And don't forget dummy cartridges, because when it comes to repeating guns, you start with what platform can we fit this in, and then it's how do we feed it. And sometimes just having dummies on day one lets you open a drawer of magazines and go, well, 6.5 and 308 do fit in the same magazine, but is it the fit I want? Does the round present at the angle that the cartridge needs? And this is all way above me. Way smarter people than me do all this and make better decisions than I would. But it's part of that path of figuring out how to feed a platform as well.
Yeah. Big problems if it doesn't, right? And, Jaden mentioned, the 6.5 PRC. You didn't mention that specifically, but I think that's the cartridge you were referring to, where the 6.5 PRC dimensionally didn't meet any pre-existing standard. It was a short action Magnum with an overall length at 2.96 inches, which is 1/8 of an inch or more longer than the other short action Magnums on the market. And that created some initial problems. However, as the ammo guys, we weren't willing to sacrifice the performance that we would lose if we push that bullet in there. That's just not the right way to do it. So I'd like to hear your guys' just kind of process now. We can talk about anything, but the 22 ARC, for example, is something that's still really topical. It's a new cartridge for us here not that long ago. Long range guys, varmint hunters, even big game hunters. We've taken a lot of deer, antelope, even black bears with that thing. I took it to Africa using the 80 grain ELDX, took some good plains game with it. So that's a really new offering from us, and I know you guys have that in your lineup as well. What does a new cartridge look like when we hand you over the Reamer kit? What's that process like?
Yeah, so 22 ARC follows nicely in the footsteps of 6 ARC. So I'll use that more as an example.
Okay.
It's and for the American rifle line in particular, it's a bolt diameter that's kind of sort of the same as maybe a Grendel, and we kind of expect it all to work the same. But you do have to claw through all the little incremental steps of does it feed the same way the Grendel does or not? When you chamber around and fire, are we seeing the same effect on the bolt? Is lug strength as we expect or not? And it comes down to a lot of rounds fired, and that's feeding them, shooting them out of a sled, off the shoulder. And that's for a bolt action repeater. The moment you add semi-auto to it, it's a whole nother, the feeding dynamics all change, the speed that everything happens changes a lot. On the ejection side, it's can you get that case out of the window quickly enough in time before everything cycles back?
Yeah, I would think carbon has a big play into that, if you're doing a longevity test.
Yep. So it ultimately comes down to a lot of rounds fired by a lot of different people, especially in the handgun world. The user interface, hand on a pistol, it's not even a limp wristing thing. It's I'm 200 pounds, and if you're 100 pounds or 300 pounds, just that mass behind the gun changes the dynamics of that whole system.
Wow. So
a lot of rounds fired, and just try to get all that learning done as fast as we can so that our customers aren't learning it for us.
That's a problem.
We make a lot of the semi-auto handguns in Prescott, Arizona, where I'm based, and that's how it is. They're always looking for the widest array of shooters they can get. Big dudes, small dudes, female shooters, left hand, right hand, new shooters, experienced shooters. I mean, the whole gamut.
Lot goes into it.
Experience the cutting-edge performance of the 25 Creedmoor, the first 25 caliber cartridge purpose-built to take advantage of today's sleek, low-drag bullets, maximizing performance in the wind while maintaining minimal recoil and delivering excellent energy on target. Initial offerings include a 134 grain ELD match load and a 128 grain ELD-X precision hunter load. Elevate your long-range game with the 25 Creedmoor from Hornady.
One question I had on a personal note that I would think others may or may not have, they don't think like this perhaps. Hornady, family-owned company. Jason and Steve are right at the end of the hallway. We can go talk to them, and they can say, you're wasting your time, don't do that, or you're fired tomorrow. They've never said that seriously to my knowledge, but they have asked me how long have I worked for them, not including tomorrow. But you can go talk to them, and they are, to quote George Bush, they are the decider, right? Like you've got your direct manager, like for the ballistics development group, you've got Joe Thielen and Mitch Middlestead, the director and assistant director of our engineering department. And for the most part, if what you're doing has validity and you're convicted, go with it. Awesome. Yep. And then if Jason and Steve do or don't like it, okay, great. Yeah. That's how we do our product. You guys, being a publicly traded company, have more people to answer to for wasted time, wasted resources on projects. So just because a cartridge is SAAMI approved does not mean it's going to fit in your lineup or you're going to pursue it. So I'd like to hear how that goes for you guys. Like I said, we just go down the hallway and Steve says yes or no. How does that work for you guys to decide, okay, we're going to pursue this?
There's certainly some politicking that has to happen.
Okay.
So it helps when cartridges are easy. If it drops in, we say, oh, well, we've done some initial testing. It feels really good. This is all going to be pretty smooth. That goes a long way. But there has to be a customer for everything we build.
Right.
So sometimes on new cartridges especially, if the wind hasn't filled the sails, salespeople in particular don't have any great interest. Mm-hmm. And I think we've established that new cartridges always generate interest.
Well, that's nice.
And
New sales,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's something nobody has. Nobody had a Ruger American in 6mm arc. Glad to have it.
Mm-hmm.
But until we can prove that we can do it, it can be a bit of a hard effort to convince everyone that a direction makes sense.
Sure.
So frictionless is good, makes everything easier. And then being able to identify the role, the purpose, who that customer is for a cartridge, and for a cartridge in a platform in particular, just to identify what the size of the opportunity is.
Awesome.
It can take some time.
Yep, and I figured it would, and that, we just kind of roll about things cavalier, I guess would be the right term for it, because I don't know, Jaden, you can fill me in. Like it's
I kind of just go mess around and try to fix problems, and then if it works, you'd say, "Hey, this works," and they say, "Cool, let's do it."
Yeah,
you would think it was super complex and analyzed and stuff, but it's really simple because we're all just shooters and hunters, and we just go do it, and make something better. But yeah, that's probably a little bit different than what you guys have.
Yeah, I think our boat might be a little bigger and slower to steer sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think we've done a good job in the recent past of finding a good reason to chase a new path, drive to it, sort it all out, and bring it to market.
Is there times when you guys will kind of like just sit back and watch a little bit so you can gather more info and see how the product does in the market and then say, okay, yeah, it does seem justified if it's questionable in the beginning?
Yes, but it's not completely passive sitting back. There's usually a lot of questions that we have.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't have the answers, or the answers are beyond what we're capable of. So especially on the internal ballistics side, for a gas gun, what pressure does it actually make at the gas port? That's not our bailiwick. We don't play in that world. But you guys can often answer those sort of questions and help get us going with more information.
Yeah. Excellent. So you get the kits, you get some guns, you get the approval from up ahead. Yep, absolutely. Yep, let's dive into this. Once you get a couple of guns built, Nate, I'm guessing this is your wheelhouse here as far as manufacturing goes. You got to get these things tested. Now, you're an RXM guy, based on the hat alone. How many rounds are you firing through these things? Not only looking for, ammunition, 9mm, it's been SAAMI approved for a really long time. Not only does this round fit, feed, and function, what can I break? What needs to change? Is the grip angle correct? Or the stifling, the trigger, et cetera, et cetera? How many rounds are you firing in pursuit of, yes, this gets the green check mark and we're going to market with it?
Upwards of 10, 20,000, and then they'll make a change and they'll start the test all over again. I mean, it's a lot. We try to make calculated decisions, right?
Right.
And it's like Matt said, or sometimes the boat turns pretty slowly. But it's all in the pursuit of, the ideal, the perfect handgun, the perfect rifle, whatever it is we're chasing. But yeah,
that's a lot of trigger pull.
It is, and it's different varieties of ammo too, right?
Of course,
different grains, different brands, proof rounds. I mean, all
plus
of it.
P standard. So, just going back to the RXM projects, it sounds like you had a pretty good hand in that one. You go we're doing this function test, and we find that whatever's wrong. Walk us through some of the design elements that you ended up changing throughout the RXM pistol life, just to see what that looks like. What kind of stuff are you looking for?
Well, I mean, on the manufacturing side, I work with the product design engineers.
Sure.
And I will give feedback to them, and vice versa. They'll come to me and be like, "Hey, we need to change this. We found this. It's catching on this, or whatever it is. It's not allowing this to go into battery. We need you to move this." So, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth that goes on.
Yeah.
But it's hard to put a finger on one thing.
Okay.
You try not to change too many things at once, because then you don't really know
what you got.
You don't really know what the root problem was and what you solved, or how you solved that problem.
Yeah.
So it's one thing at a time. Okay, let's change this, and then we'll test it again.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that, and this gun, in particular, the RXM, has gone through the gauntlet.
I bet it has. Well, it's a no-fail type of firearm. When it's one thing to have, a bolt action hunting rifle for hunting deer or something like that. Obviously, that's no fail as well, and no one is designing stuff to fail. But when you're marketing a pistol as a concealed carry option, you have to make sure you've done everything to make sure that is going to chamber, it's going to fire, it's going to extract, and it's going to load the next one.
Yep.
No matter what ammo, who's shooting it.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were just talking about, the different array of testers, because I can walk in the range and fire 2,000 rounds and never have a problem, but somebody else that holds their grip slightly different than mine will have, stovepipe after failure to feed, all these different issues. And, we'll analyze video. We'll be like, well, what are they doing differently than what you're doing and why?
Mm-hmm.
And then
interesting.
Different ammo manufacturers. I mean,
yeah,
we're not the only one,
No, right?
And yeah, we have a great partnership, but you guys have to make sure that thing runs with the full spectrum of what's available.
Yeah.
That's got to be a significant challenge, I would imagine. Have you kind of identified, like characterized the market of ammunition that's out there so that you can kind of get your mins and your maxes maybe or do you just have to blindly just get stuff and test it all?
I can speak to the broader rifle world that no brand owns the higher pressure, faster velocity, lower pressure when you go across different cartridges.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
So within a cartridge family, yeah, we probably have a pretty good idea of how a particular manufacturer's ammunition interacts with a firearm, what kind of muzzle velocity you get, what kind of carrier velocity you get in like an AR platform. But no one owns the market on any one characteristic.
Okay.
And then the gas gun world, it's if you perceive a particular ammunition as being kind of dirty, smoky, sooty, your gun's certainly going to experience the same thing. And sometimes that means fast ammo. Sometimes that means slower, lower pressure ammunition. There's no real rhyme or reason without measuring things. We have to quantify those behaviors, not just observe them. And yeah, making a platform work with everything that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Barrel finishes is one I was thinking of talking about RXM, where that's not even a cartridge thing. That's just inane little details that are so minute. But like the way a barrel sounded on the slide, that was probably more of your life than you want to remember.
Very true.
Really?
We chased that down for quite a while.
Is that just for auditory happiness, or that was a when it sounds like this, it runs good kind of deal?
I mean, there's different issues that go both ways, but that one in particular was, like a perceived quality thing.
Yep.
Like we tried to price the gun so that more people could afford it, but it's by no means a cheap gun, and we didn't want it to sound cheap, right? So we didn't want that kind of clinky file on metal sound when the barrel was racked in the slide. So,
well, that's a little thing that can make a big difference.
Right. So we paid attention to all that, and we changed the way we finished the barrels, from the machining to the blasting process to the nitride. And I mean, we've changed and rechanged several times.
Wow. So for the RXM project specifically, how long did it take you guys to go from concept, okay, this is what we're doing, to that product's on the store shelf? What was that design timeline like?
Ooh, yeah, long time. I think this one in particular is interesting just because RXM is that Ruger and Magpul partnership that's in the name. So that was a layer of nuance that we'd never dealt with before. Usually a new platform is all internal to us. We control all the timing on everything. We communicate internally. It's not going out of the company to try to share not only this is how the fire control insert fits to the frame and slide, and a lot of moving parts. It was probably an idea a lot longer before I even know. And then I just called a couple of years is probably the close to the truth between saying this is something we're going to do and bringing it to market.
And that was a totally new platform. To go back to, you talked about the Ruger American, the Grindle 7.62x39. Okay, those share the same case head dimension as the 6 arc and the 22 arc. What's that time look like on a bolt action rifle for something that just kind of fits already?
Can be as few as, let's say, 3 months.
Okay.
If it's a bore groove twist rate that already exists in the catalog, that's probably the shorter end of it.
Mm-hmm.
when it's 338 arc, let's say, and we're certain we haven't cracked the code yet on that one. Excited to get there eventually, but that's new hammer forging mandrels. It's new chamber reamers,
Tooling.
and we do appreciate the head start we get with a new cartridge kit. But that only makes a couple guns, and we're interested in making a lot more than a couple of rifles.
We have one of the largest firearm manufacturers in the world.
Yeah. So, and we know how to make reamers the way we want that fit our process and make a good chamber. So we don't delay on that. We do want to get that going quickly so we can sort our own reamers out, make sure that geometry is correct, and all that tooling takes probably a lot of the time. Prototyping in parallel with that goes a long way.
Sure.
And things that already fit magazines is great, and just proving out a product that works and functions and feeds and is accurate as we all expect it to be, and it's at least 3 months.
That sounds quicker than what I thought you'd say. Yeah. But that's still pretty. I mean, that's 3 months of work by a lot of people.
Yeah, that is a priority when something goes that fast.
Yeah.
That is moving a lot of obstacles out of everyone's way.
Yeah, that's a project that came from the top down. You weren't fighting your way up. That one came to you.
It's crazy when you think about, ammo has 4 essentially parts,
Yep.
right? And it's not simple at all in manufacturing those parts, but 4 parts. And then you look at especially a semi-auto pistol design, like there's an insane level of parts in comparison.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing kind of something new from the ground up. I mean, you can always still rob from prior designs and stuff like that, but I'm sure that's quite the task. I can see how that could take years. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the RXM in particular, yeah, you're probably not far off with your 2-year guess. I've been on it for about 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
But it preceded me by
Okay.
a lot more than that, so.
That's fascinating. And this all leads us up to the one question that I think everybody's been wondering, which is, when is Ruger going to start chambering the 257 Roberts again?
By everybody, he means Seth.
Just me. Yeah. I was the only one. My dad probably cares.
You want 2 quarter bores in 1 year? Impossible.
Impossible. Jason Hornady will probably have a talk with me if he listens to this part of the episode. But no, said it on the show a million times. My first rifle was a Ruger M77 in 257 Roberts, and I haven't touched it. It's got a Leupold Very X3 2-7 on there, 22-inch little barrel. And man, I shot the snot out of stuff growing up with that rifle, and I still have it and still plan on having my kids use it as well. Times have changed. There are new advancements in cartridge design and technology, and I'm glad that Ruger is on the forefront of getting those new products in their lineup. And you guys have such a vast lineup from the Ruger American. You're still obviously doing the M77, and everywhere in between. The RPR was a huge success with some of our precision cartridges. You guys got something for everybody.
Yeah, and if we don't, tell us, and we like to hear that as well.
Yeah,
we can identify a lot of holes in the marketplace, but there's a niche for everyone, and a lot of different ways to fill it.
The Hornady Security Fireproof Keypad Safe. With a heavy-duty 16-gauge steel body, extra-thick 8-gauge steel door, and 4 1-inch diameter locking lugs, the fireproof safe achieves a fire rating of 30 minutes for up to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. Both the interior and adjustable shelf are covered in a protective carpet that offers flexible storage configurations while safeguarding valuables from damage. The Fireproof Keypad Safe from Hornady Security.
I think it's really cool. You guys have helped so many new shooters breach into new disciplines, like we do a lot of the precision rifle stuff, and the all things considered of affordability and quality and performance that you can get out of a Ruger bolt action rifle for those sort of sports. It's crazy, because that used to be monopolized into, you were going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars or build a gun or have a gunsmith, do something. And it's been really cool to see a guy, you go to a match and there's a guy that's never shot a match before and he's got a Ruger American, and you can say, hey, everything's going to be fine. Like, you're going to learn a ton through these next 2 days, but you have a capable system. It's pretty cool.
That's good to hear. And it's true on a competition setting. It's been true in the hunting world, and and just the target plinking new shooter arena.
Mhm.
If you haven't shot a 5.56 or 300 Blackout American Ranch, you're missing out. It's a great little platform to spend time with.
Yep. And embracing the suppressor movement as well, which is always great.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see some litigation change, not to get all political on you, but man, that'd be really cool too. And I have to say, this is unrelated to our actual topic, but that Gen 2 Ruger American, aesthetically, whoa, you guys up the ante on that thing. The original Gen 1 Ruger American, Mr. Judge Jarzinka back here, big fan of the ranch rifle. If you walked around Hornady Manufacturing and stopped at everybody, there's going to be an overwhelming number of people that have Ruger Americans. And they were super functional. They all shot well. Aesthetically, maybe left some to be desired, depending on personal preference. You guys rolled out that Gen 2 with the threaded or the spiral fluted barrel. Are you kidding me? That just looks the part, the different bolt. Well done with that one. That thing probably sells itself.
Oh, glad to hear it. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Now, into the podcast, I'm going to leave Nate to go second because I don't think he listens to our show, so he doesn't know this is coming. Matt, I don't know if you've listened to any episodes. For every new guest on the show, the listeners need to know. Now, there's a hypothetical world that we're going to live in. Step on into the spaceship. We're going on a ride. In this hypothetical world, you could have an infinite amount of firearms. You could have, sky's the limit, 100 million firearms. And in every configuration, from bolt action to pistol to semi-auto, you name it, you could have 1 million firearms. However, they all have to be chambered in the same cartridge to do all of your shooting, your competing, your hunting, etc. So, if you had to pick one cartridge, and if you have a favorite Hornady bullet to go along with it, that'd be great too. But if you had to pick one to fit into all your disciplines as you as a shooter, what would you pick? Now, if you want to, I can give you a couple of the podcast go-to answers. The hefty majority has been 6.5 Creedmoor with the 143 ELDX because you can shoot precision matches with it. NRL Hunter, you can certainly hunt with it. That's been a really popular one. We've had one 9mm, I think.
Who is that?
I don't know. Preston, you
Bold
remember?
choice.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason Slinkard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he changed it to 6 ARC.
That's because he wanted to be correct.
That
would be why.
But we've had a lot of that. We've had a lot of 7 PRC. But everybody's got different desires. Some people only need, personal defense. Some people only really hunt, but some people do a lot of things. 3-gun, multi-gun. What's it going to be? Matt, we're starting with you. Nate, you put your thinking cap on here.
You had me in the first half.
Yeah,
I don't like it in the second half.
To add on to it, ammo is infinite and free in this hypothetical world. And if we're in a hypothetical world, we just to say every firearm has to be suppressed for reasons.
Clearly.
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
I don't know that it's terribly exciting, but probably just 308 Winchester.
That's been a staple answer as well.
And so I've been shooting it quite a bit with the 178 grain, I believe, ELDX.
Right on. Yep.
It's a 150 CX I've been playing with. Is it 150?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Our man behind the camera, Preston Limpfer, he chose 308 Winchester with the 178 ELDX.
He's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
But I do like the
Arguable.
versatility. You can get some pretty light bullets screaming fast.
Mm-hmm.
You get some pretty heavy bullets going a little bit slower, but still pretty functional.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun out of short guns.
Yep.
Pretty effective out of longer barrels.
You can do a lot. You could still do your action sports. You could do long-range precision, and you can certainly hunt with it. And should you need it for a home invasion situation, that's a big cartridge.
Yeah. Final answer.
308 Winchester. All right. Now, I'm guessing you do a little bit of everything I just said as far as competing and hunting and stuff like that.
At least pretend to.
Yeah. Nate, you could start off by what kind of shooting do you do primarily? Are you recreational? Are you competitive? Do you do any hunting? And that might help pigeonhole your answer.
A lot of recreational.
Okay.
Honestly, never competed much.
Okay. Well, that changes today.
Apparently.
You're a competitor
tomorrow.
now.
Yeah. Man, I know I'm going to catch heat for this, but I've been having a lot of fun with the 5.7x28 round.
Get out.
I love it in my I love it in my handgun. It's real fun in the carbine. I mean, It won't go the distance as one of these high.
Yeah. No, that's all individual, and I have to say, it is fun.
Yeah.
It is. Especially suppressed, I bet it
is really fun suppressed.
Yeah. And you've got, if you're a recreational shooter, you're banging steel, you're punching paper, you've got the PDW thing taken care of, you got the home secure, and you can still go out there and have a ton of fun shooting it, no recoil. That's not a bad answer because everybody's different, and if you're not big game hunting or something like that, then there's no problem.
Is that a first? Is that the first?
It's very likely going to be the only. But,
I told you. I was
all jokes aside, that's the cool part of the question, though, is you get to see the individual, what kind of shooter they are, what kind of shooting do they do, what do they enjoy, and I think that's what makes the world go around, especially internally in the shooting sports world that we live in. Is we're all active, just in different stuff. It's some of us spend more time big game hunting than anything else. Some people spend way more time, shooting USPSA and that kind of stuff. And you just got to find what works for you. I dig it. So, gentlemen, from the Ruger side, is there anything else that you want to leave our listener with about, the design process or what you guys got coming up or what your design philosophy may be?
I mean, if we've never chambered a cartridge, there's probably a reason, or never chambered a cartridge in a particular platform. There's probably a good reason. Don't stop you from asking us, and we'd be glad to try to answer those questions when we can. But sometimes we've gone to the work and effort to figure out if the shoe fits. And if it doesn't fit, maybe there's some good reasons for that.
Gotcha. Nate, anything on the manufacturing side?
Oh, man. Not really, but I liked what you said about, kind of the voice of the customer is very powerful, right?
Of course.
I mean, you guys create a round that's, you see a need and try to fill the hole, right? But then when people like us come in, there's got to be a demand for it, right? And that's the voice of the customer. So, I mean, it's a good partnership. It's a good team effort. It's what makes us tick, right?
Right on. Jaden, anything from your side on the cartridge development side from the ballistics development group?
I don't think so. I think it's just awesome to have really good partnerships where we can work together and get like you said, get the customer what they want. Because what they want isn't just a rifle. It's not just a cartridge. It's those two things in tandem and what they do together. And I don't think you can do that in a vacuum. I think you have to work together and communicate and help each other. And so it's been a lot of fun in my time at Hornady to work with you guys on that stuff.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else for you. Jaden, thanks for coming back on the show. We know what project you were working on before you came up here. So go back, get started on that. Gentlemen, best of luck tomorrow. I hope to see you in at least the bottom third of the top half of competitors.
We'll try.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to this episode with a kind of peek behind the curtain of new cartridge and new firearm development with our friends from Ruger. This is a partnership that's going back now 76 years since 1949. We appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.